Hello AEM community and welcome back to another HelpX video. In today's video we're going to go through how to create an Adobe Experience Manager HTL component that renders a newsletter. By using an HTL component that renders a newsletter, authors can set content for the newsletter quite easily. They can set text, they can set images, and they can set the body of the newsletter by using a multi-field. That is, for each piece of content you want to display in the newsletter, an author can set the content that typically contains a title, a link to an external resource like a blog or a video, and then a description. Let's take a look at a real example. So notice we have a newsletter here rendered in Experience Manager named Community Experiences. So this newsletter consists of a header where we have text. We show the edition, the date, the title of the newsletter, and then a description. The second section consists of some text. So we have a header, and then we have some text that introduces the newsletter to the readers. Finally, we have a repeating subsection which forms the current issue of the newsletter. So we have a link that is shown at the top, and then we have data. So if we go to preview mode, we can take a look at this. So if we want to see projects API in AEM, we click open new tab, and then it'll render the content that we want to feature in the newsletter. And then finally we have a section at the bottom that contains a newsletter archive. So the objective of this section would be to show previous editions of the newsletter. For the purpose of this article, we're not going to populate this with data. So let's take a look at how this component can be edited. So in the edit view, we'll click edit, we'll scroll down, click the Touch UI dialog. So notice that we have our title for our newsletter, Community Experiences, we have our description, we have our edition. Scroll over to the current issue. Here's where our multi-field is. And this is where we can set each of our current issues. So we have the title, we have a path or an URL to where the content's located, and then we have the description. So being a multi-field in the Touch UI, I really like how we can expand the Touch UI dialog, and then we can change around the order of the items. So for example, we want to switch the blueprint redefined to the top. Simply drag this, scroll up. So now notice is at the top. We can click the OK button. Then take a look at the current issue. Now we have the blueprint redefined as the top item under current issues. So this is an example of how easy it is to add, remove, modify content in your AEM newsletter. So by using this newsletter, authors will be able to create newsletters as easy as ever. We're just going to examine the folder structure of this newsletter app. So we have under apps, we have newsletter, and then under newsletter we have templates. So we have news template we've created, and the resource type of this, as shown under when you click JCR content, is newsletter components page news, which is here. And then here's where we have our news JSP. So this is just pointing to a standard Parse system. So we can now drag components onto the Parse. So once we develop the component, we can drag it onto this template, and then it'll display the component. So moving on into the article, everything I just went over is documented here. So you can create the folder structure, create the template by following this procedure, create the page rendering component based on the template. Now what we want to do is scroll down to the Maven project. So we're going to use a Maven 10 archetype project to build the backend OSGI. And the reason we're going to do this is we're going to use the AEM62 UberJar. And so once we set up the dependencies in the POM files, we can easily use all of the APIs required for this component. So let's start to build this component. First thing we want to do is copy this Maven command from the article and drop it into our command prompt. So if we go here, we go to a working directory, so we're going to use Adobe CQVids. And then run the command. Set up our project, so when we're prompted for our input parameters, we can simply enter in news HTL, use as value. For the package, we're going to copy it from the article, so it's going to be org Adobe AEM Club ch example. So for the rest of the parameters, we can go back to news HTL. Once it's successfully built, change the working directory to news HTL, and then run a second command for Maven. And what we're going to do is convert it to an Eclipse project. And this is going to allow us to pull the project into Eclipse and then complete our coding. So we'll just wait for it to finish up, and then we'll import it into Eclipse. So once we've imported it in, we can see the project now successfully displayed in the Project Explorer. First off, we want to delete the test package. We're not working in this, and by deleting it, we can just make sure that we're not placing our code into the wrong places. So here's where we want to place our code in the org Adobe AEM Club ch example core models. So we switch back to the article. It'll list clearly the 4 classes that we want to add to this project. The first is issue bean, and it's going to store the values used in the first multi-field and it displays in the AEM component. So this is going to be the data that the author enters into the current issues. And then the issues multi-bean is going to be the class that extends WCM use Pojo, and it's going to control the logic. So we're going to set the beans, and we're going to be able to set it up so it's going to be successfully rendered into the component. The news archive bean, well, these two, although we're going to be putting them into today's project, they're not going to be used because we're not setting the archive bean. However, for the purpose of this video, we're still going to add them to the project. So this stage, we're at this point in the article, we're going to port the project into Eclipse. So I'm going to convert over to Eclipse, click File, Import, Existing project in Workspace, click Next, browse to our working directory. And then you can see we have Adobe CQVids, and then news HTL. Click OK, and then we can see here's all of our projects. We want to click Finish. Okay, so at this point we've copied over all the classes from the article into Eclipse. So we notice that we have issue bean. So under issue bean, notice that we have a data member for every value in the multi-field. So we have page, and it's going to store the heading. We have path, that's going to store the URL, and then description. So each of these will line up with each of the fields and each of the multi-fields in the Touch UI dialog. And the purpose of this is it's going to store the value that an author will enter into each dialog. So we switch over to issues multi-bean. We can see first off that it's going to extend WCM use Pojo, which is our base class for developing Java, part of a HTL component. So notice that we have created a private data member of a list. So each element of this list Java collection object is going to be an issue bean. So it's going to store all of the values for all the multi-fields that an author enters in. So if they enter in 5, 6 values for each, multi-fields that each contain values, each multi-field set will be stored in the collection element of this issue bean. So we scroll down to set items so we can see exactly where that's happening. Right here we're going to be creating a new instance bean using the new operator. So it's going to instantiate a new object, and then we're going to read from the page. So we're going to get the issue's title, we're going to get the path and the description. It's going to set it into this object, and then we're going to store the object into the collection. So it's pretty straightforward. It's going to loop through for each multi-field. And then finally what we're going to do is we're going to set it to the bean using the setLBean method, pass in the bean, and then this is what's going to be returned to the front end component. All this is explained in the article, so I recommend reading the article for a closer understanding of all the Java logic here. And we're going to go on and proceed to setting up our POM files. So this stage, we're at this point in the article. So what we want to do is get the dependencies shown here, and we want to go to our working directory. Notice this POM file will open it up in a text editor, so I'll open it with brackets. We're going to scroll down to about line 380. I'm going to put the dependencies from the article right here. So notice here that we're going to be using version 6.2.0, so we're going to click Save. So the next part of the POM file we want to modify is in Eclipse, so we'll grab all of these dependencies here, scroll down to the end, go to a POM file in Eclipse, open up the source where the raw source file of the POM file, overwrite the dependencies here, and then click Save. So now we've updated both the POM files. We're ready to build the OSGI bundle. So we're just going to run a Maven command to build the bundle. So although in the article we're going to run Maven clean p auto install package install, I'm just going to run a Maven clean install here just to build the OSGI bundle. So we can see that it's successfully built. That means our OSGI bundle that we just built contains all of the backend HTL logic. So we open up AEM. We can see that we have the OSGI bundle up and running. So here it is right here, news HTL. You can see it's in an active state. So that's part of this article. We're going to build the front end component. So to build it, what we're going to do is we're going to go to newsletter components. We're going to right click. We're going to click create component. Enter in these fields with the values from the article. So we can see tab component, the categories we're going to place it. Once we're done, you'll have tab component already written. So this already has all of the values that we're going to add. I'll just discuss them. So first off, we have our Touch UI dialog. So this Touch UI dialog is pretty advanced dialog. It's got a lot of tabs. You can see here under items we have a container resource type. So it's granted UI components foundation container, and this represents each of the tabs we're going to be putting in. So we have text image, text, current issue, and then archive newsletter. So if we go back to our Touch UI dialog, just to make sure everybody understands the mapping, that those nodes correspond to these tabs in the dialog. If we drill down further in here, you can see that we've got columns, we've got items, and then we have, keep drilling down, here's all of our fields. So we have file, title, description, edition. So each of these have a corresponding Sling resource type. So start with the top. You can notice that we have Granite UI Components Foundation Form File Upload. So this is to upload an image. This is our text field. This is a rich text editor that we have in our Touch UI dialog. So if we go back here and scroll down, we can see this is the rich text editor. And then finally, down here, we have just another text field. So addition is Granite UI Components Foundation Form text field. So it's pretty important that as an AEM developer, you understand how all of the component and all the resource types and all the nodes work together to form a Touch UI dialog. You can install a package shown at the beginning of this article and really examine each of the nodes and understand how they're all put together. Because like I just mentioned, understanding how they all work together is a very key, important part of being an AEM developer. Now we also have a client lib as part of this component, and the main part of this client lib, we have a nested field JS. This nested field JS contains application logic we need for the Touch UI to contain a multi-field. So if we read through this, this is basically jQuery. It contains some logic that allows us to work with the multi-field in the Touch UI dialog. I recommend you go through this code, read the comments, and understand everything that's going on. Without this, we're not going to have a successful multi-field in our Touch UI dialog. Now we're finally going to look at the tab component HTML logic. So this is the HTML that's responsible for rendering out the newsletter. It's got a lot of content in it. I'm going to go over a bit of that. So right away you can see at the top of it, it's got a lot of style for responsive HTML, and this is going to be used really for rendering out the newsletter on both a desktop and a mobile. It looks great on a mobile. It's responsive. If we scroll down here, we can see that we've got a lot of style. We've got script right here. Now this script, what it's doing is it's setting the iframe height, and without it, because this component has got a lot of content, it'll be cut off in the Touch UI, so you won't be seeing all of it in the edit mode. So with this function called as script right here on the onload of the body, it's going to ensure that when we appear in the Touch UI dialog, like in Touch UI edit mode, the whole component will be displayed. Otherwise, it may be cut off here or somewhere without seeing the whole body of the component. So that's something to note when working with a component in HTML that contains a lot of logic, a lot of code that's going to be rendered out. You might want to think about adding some script that's going to make sure that you're going to be able to view the whole component. Moving further in this, we're going to see where our HTML comes into play. So right here, we're going to see our current issues. Now this is interesting to notice. So current issues here is a head to, and this is where we're going to be using some of our HTL logic. So we're going to be using data slide use IBean ob, and this is going to be mapping up to the Java classes that we did. So issues multi-bean is going to be mapping right up to issues multi-bean right here. So notice that this is our main class, and it's extending WC means Pojo. And then right here, we know it's going to be setting, returning a list. So as a result, we're going to be sending a list right here. So it's data slide list IBean ob lbean, and this is mapping to the Java list data member right here. And that notice that, as I explained earlier in this video, that we're setting the collection here. So this is what's going to be returned on the front end. So that you can see that now we're going to be, for each list in the, or each element in the list, we're going to be writing out this, these p tags. It's going to loop through and it's going to write out each one. So this is a very important concept to understand when working with HTML and Java, that you can set your data in the bean, even as a collection, and then write it out with HTML logic in this manner. So you can see that we're going to be writing out items page, items description, and items path. All three of these data members that we've set in our Java B here are being written out into the component. And so as a result of that, we're going to be, an author is going to set in the touch UI dialog, the Java is going to control the collection of it. It's going to create a collection object, and then the front end of the component is going to write it out. So knowing that relationship is very, very important. By knowing that, you can build a lot of powerful AEM HTML components. So moving back to our front end logic, we've got the same thing here for the news archive, but in this example, we haven't set that. This is going to be set in future editions of the newsletter when we have previous editions. However, right now we're assuming this is the first newsletter and this isn't set. So I recommend reading through the HTML, really understanding how this HTML and the logic on the front end maps to the back end, and then how you can write out collections from that are set in the back end into the front end component. So once you understand that relationship, like I said, you're going to be able to build a lot of powerful HTML components that has a lot of logic on the back end with Java, maybe incorporating other APIs, and then so forth. So like, it's really, really beneficial for you to go through this example, read it, understand it. So this concludes today's video. I hope you understand it all. I hope it's been of value, and thank you for watching.